Uddalaka continued to reflect. It is only when this false ego sense has arisen that the perverse notions, this is mine and that is his, arise. This again is relating, I think, to our investment in objects. We like to possess things. There's no doubt that many of the things we like to possess might be things of beauty. Even a nicely engineered car, for example, or something that's been nicely designed. The trick though is being able to appreciate something without wanting to possess it, whether it's an object or another person. We like something appeals to us, so we want to possess it. We hear a piece of music on the radio, it's beautiful, we want to record it and keep it. We see somebody we like, we want to make them our own, we want to possess them. Collector's edition, special collector's edition, collect the whole sequence, the whole set. It's quite a strong compulsion, isn't it, the whole collecting thing. What's that about then? And what happens when you want to move? Sometimes collections can be rather bulky and they pin you down. They restrict your movement. They restrict your freedom. Lots of possessions do. And when it is seen that all these are tricks of the false ego sense, these unreal notions cease to be. There is in truth naught else but the self. Hence I realize that all this is the one cosmic being or Brahman. Notions of possession only arise when we identify with our limited ego. Our own awareness, which underpins the ego, is infinite. It's the absolute Brahman. We don't appreciate it as such, and that's what the Yoga Vasistha is doing. It is pointing us in the direction of our awareness, and it is saying, look how wonderful this is. Why are you shortchanging yourself? This is what you can be opening yourself to. This is what you can be identifying yourself with. But instead you might want to be caught up in collecting the latest set of teddy bears or something, who knows. So you can be aware of the infinite Brahman, or you can be aware of the limited ambitions of your own ego sense. The delusion known as ego sense is like the blueness of the sky. It is better not to entertain that notion once again, but to abandon it. The understanding here is that the blueness of sky comes from a limitation of vision, that eyes can only see so far, and then things appear blue. It's of course not true, but the idea of limited vision arises because our vision is limited, that we get caught up in notions of possession, notions of personal identity. We can look beyond that limitation. We can abandon the limitation. After having abandoned the very root of the ego sense, I rest in the self, which is of the nature of peace. And it's not something to be looking for outside yourself. It's what is doing the looking. Instead of overlooking, just look. We're constantly overlooking what is doing the looking. The ego sense is the source of endless sorrow, suffering and evil action. Life ends in death, and death leads to birth, and what is disrupted by its own end. Such notions entertained by the ego sense lead to great sorrow. The anxiety caused by thoughts like, I have got this now, I shall get that too, burns the ignorant. This is, and that is not. Such notions cause restlessness in the egotist. But if the ego sense ceases to be, then the illusory world appearance does not germinate again, and all cravings come to an end. All cravings are based on the idea that there's something out there that we can attain, that we can achieve. How can you ever have anything? There's a story about the conqueror Alexander the Great. He gave instructions when he died to leave one hand dangling out of his coffin. And Alexander conquered, I think he had the biggest empire that had ever been seen by that time. But he realised he had nothing, and that's what the empty dangling hand from his coffin demonstrated. He actually owned nothing. The concept of ownership is strange. There are certain legal and practical requirements we have to adhere to. For the sake of practicalities, we need to adhere to notions of ownership, possession, and so on. But from a spiritual point of view, from the point of view of reality, it isn't possible to own anything. This universe has surely come into being without any valid cause for its creation. How can one accept the truth of a creation which had no cause or purpose? From time immemorial, all these bodies have been inherent in the cosmic being, even as pots are forever inherent in clay. So everything is something which exists in potential. It doesn't actually exist. It's all notional. Does a notion exist? Does an idea have existence? Does a thought have existence? They all have power, don't they? They all have power. But can we say that they actually exist? It's like the existence of a wave. Nobody would doubt that a wave has power. It can wreak devastation. The wave of an ocean wave. But a wave isn't actually anything that we can identify as a physical entity. It is a pattern that we perceive. But there is actually nothing moving from the distance to the shore. The water particles are just moving up and down or doing little circles. But that water over there is staying over there. The water here is staying here. But there's a disruption that moves. So there's a disruption in the water. But the water itself isn't moving very far. What's a disruption? Is a disruption a real thing? Even as ocean exists in the past, present and future as ocean, and the same water temporarily assumes the form of a wave, all this is forever the cosmic being at all times. It is only a fool that entertains a feeling, this I am, in relation to that temporary appearance known as the body, etc.